What was the worst job interview you've had? 5 interview rounds, with the last interview round being with the CEO, all for an entry-level customer service job. During the last interview, the CEO said you weren't allowed to get sick, and you weren't allowed to leave at the end of the day until all of the work had been done. So even though the job was 8-4, the CEO said customer service reps often stayed until 6 p.m. or later. She also asked if I would be comfortable secretly reporting to her about what the customer service team is up to. I declined the job offer, and the company harassed me with emails asking why and what they did wrong. Really glad I didn't take the job. 5 interviews for entry level? That's insane. Also, I bet the hours between 4 and 6 were unpaid. It's bizarre they know they did something wrong but are so out of touch they can't see their own mistakes in front of them. Yeah, I have one that sticks out. I applied to a government branch as a network admin. The newspaper had asked for a bachelor's degree. They called me into the interview. When I got there, the first thing the interviewer said was, "We wanted someone with a master's degree. Why did you apply now?" I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they had other interviews that day and got them mixed up. Shit happens. I just informed the interviewer that the ad I applied for requested a bachelor's degree, and confirmed the position I was interviewing for. No, we definitely wanted someone with a master's degree. So, again, why did you apply if you wanted someone with a master's degree? Why did you bother calling me in for an interview? My first interview ever was at TIC, and I accidentally knocked a 90-year-old woman over. So after accidentally slaying your predecessor, how's life been as the new Dairy Queen? But did you get the job? I thought I wanted more context. But then again, I don't know. An agency sent me for an interview and said the starting salary is $33,000. The interview went fairly well until the interviewer said, "So what sort of salary are you looking for?" So using the info I had from the agency, I said, "Well, I think $33,000 is a fair starting point." The interviewer practically threw me out. He started to shout about wasting his time because I expected to be paid a huge salary, and who did I think I was? He was paying $20,000. Paying $20,000. He was paid to say they wow. And this is why I always bring a copy of the posting with me. I don't think it would have helped, and you probably dodged a bullet anyway, but one day it'll be useful. Had a phone interview, and the woman kept asking more and more intrusive questions. Kept hinting I'm a total piece of shit who's totally unfit for the job. It was the easiest job description ever, and jumping to conclusions about my life that were completely untrue. For example, I found out that being a freelancer who gets a lot of decently paid work each month is apparently living off my parents. She kept going on and on like that for quite a while before I told her to piss off and hung up. Didn't really need that job too badly, but it was in a different country, so the travel aspect was the main reason. Years later, I found out it was a stress interview, which apparently is a thing. Fuck those people. Companies that do that are not worth working for. Edit such a simple comment, but never had that many of votes. Thanks everyone. Years later, I found out it was a stress interview, which apparently is a thing. Fuck those people. The only thing stress interviews similar are good for is giving the person being interviewed a chance to recognize a toxic hellhole and run. Seriously, interviews are a two-way street. Pay attention to the red flags you see when you're interviewed. How did you find out that it was a stress interview? When he said, "I'll give you extra hours if you bring me smokes every day," then put his hand on my leg and said his wife gives him passes to have fun. I also got a speeding ticket on the way to the interview. Was not my month. Would not have been surprised if you got a speeding ticket on the way home. Just not possible to get away from that shit fast enough. As a nanny, you get some of the weirdest job interviews. It's not a professional or rep. It's Lisa, who married her college boyfriend and works for her rich daddy. Most were just a little awkward with some inappropriate questions, like, do you have a boyfriend or do you plan on having kids soon? One definitely stands out. I go to an interview for a family of an 16-month-old. Mom introduces herself and tells me we'll be interviewing in the nursery. I follow her in and there's only one chair, the rocking chair. She tells me to sit on the ground in a not-so-nice way. It became very clear that it was symbolic for how she treats the help. She wanted to literally look down on me. I sit down and she gets her toddler out of the crib, sits in the rocking chair, and immediately starts breastfeeding. I've been around a lot of breastfeeding mammas, so it wasn't that weird. But she took her top off, so she was pretty open about it. First thing she says, I hope you re-op with this because you'll be seeing a lot it. No real hello, how's it going? Or a question. Just get used to seeing my tits. Then she tells me we'll be conducting the interview when she's done nursing. So for the next 15 minutes I'm just staring at her breastfeeding. Already super weird. The interview finally starts and it goes well. She's clearly a rich, spoiled girl. Asks a million questions, which is cool, including a couple weird ones when she's done. I go, can I ask some questions? I ask some. Her response is nope. Then she tells me she wants to see how I'll do with the kid. For the next 2 hours I follow her around and do what she tells me. I change diapers, give the kid a bath, fold baby clothes, put the kid down for a nap, even washed breast pump parts, and she's critiquing me on everything. She sends me on my way eventually. I actually thought I did really bad because she was angry a lot. Whatever, because I definitely did not want that job. A month later, I get a phone call saying I've been hired, starting tomorrow. I laughed out loud. I had apparently been the best candidate by far, probably because I just took all her shit. She had even ordered me a work uniform, which is ridiculous. I tell her I'm not accepting and she's livid. I got messages for the next 6 months telling me how horrible I am and that I betrayed her, and others telling me I can still take the job. The fact that you got a call after a month makes me think she hired someone else who quit really quickly because she is clearly terrible and you were choice too. An interviewer told me that he worried I would be sexually harassed if I joined his team. Red flag. At least he was honest and you dodged a bullet. I had an interview with Emp back in the day. I don't remember the specifics other than I was really nervous. I had a "we are sorry to inform you" email waiting for me before I finished the 10-minute trip home. Showed up looking good in my suit with a ton of knowledge on Capital Partners. It turned out I had researched the wrong company named Capital Partners. I did major research on a company and expected questions in the interview. The only one they asked was, "What is our slogan?" Of course, I hadn't memorized that. The first question they asked was a statistics exam type question. Took me completely off guard. I half-assed the answer. A complete answer would have taken half an hour. The next question was about a Punnett square analysis. I answered honestly and said that the first thing I would do would be to look it up. Errors in Punnett squares are incredibly common, and I wouldn't trust anyone who said they could do it off the top of their head. I went into a family-owned custom furniture shop that had several openings in the carpentry department. Red flag 1. When I arrived, I spoke to the person at the front of house stating I was there for an interview. The conversation went as follows. Note: owner's office was directly behind the front desk. He was watching us through a two-way mirror. Me to front desk clerk: "Hi, I'm here to interview for the carpenter position. I saw your post online." Owner storms out of his office, points a finger at me, face full of anger. Red flag 2. Owner: "Are you experienced?" Me: "Yes. I have 7 years experience with carpentry, but I am new to furniture." Owner: "Are you experienced?" Red flag 3. Me: "Yes. At an interview to be a county street sweeper, guy asks me if I have a girlfriend, proceeds to rant for 5 minutes how young people don't get married anymore. Then he asks me what I want to avoid at the job. At the time I had no idea how to answer, as I'd never been asked that in an interview before. So I ask him to clarify, to which he just repeats the question over and over until he gets super angry that I don't know how to answer that, then asks me to leave. To this day, biggest interview I've had. Maybe the correct answer would be cars and trees. I was interviewing for a job in Houston, and lived in Austin, about 5 hours away. I drove to Houston for the first round of interviews, and they said it went well and wanted to bring me in for a final interview, so I drove there again. It seemed like it went well, and they told me they had one more interview to conduct and would have a decision tomorrow. So the next day came and went. I emailed the manager to ask if any decision had been made. Nothing. Waited a couple more days, left a voicemail, nothing. Then a couple days later, I just called the main number for the company and told the receptionist why I was calling. She was like, well, someone just started in that job yesterday. They ghosted me after I drove a total of 10 hours to interview twice. That's fucked up. It is simple courtesy to send a thanks, but no thanks to rejected applicants. Job was for a vibration analysis engineer. I knew how to do the job well. I knew the pay should be around 95, and they stated 55 in the interview. When I tried to discuss my point, they said, don't worry, there's plenty of overtime. They also mentioned since they weren't involved with many balancings at the moment, I would assist the cleaning crew with a lot of the cleanings. I've never been so interested in a job in my life. The vibrations analysis cleaning crew, that's a complicated way to say sex toy tester. I interviewed for what was my dream job, something that I have a ton of experience in and 2 degrees, including one from literally the most prestigious school in my field. They liked me so much on my first few rounds of interviews that they asked me to fly across the country for the final one. So I go through easily the worst travel day of my life, arrive for my interview, and the interviewer takes one look at my resume and says, I don't know why you came all the way out here. You aren't qualified for this. Suffice to say, I will never work there. Similar story from a former colleague. He was interviewing for a position with a local company, had a branch location in another city. He passed his touch screen, so they went for the in-person part, which involved flying him out and staying the night. When he arrived at the office for the interview, a receptionist led him into a conference room and dialed into a bridge on a speakerphone. After 5 minutes of waiting for his interviewer to join, the receptionist had to call the guy on his cell to remind him of the appointment. He finally joined and basically phoned it, in pun intended, as if he had no interest in filling the position, much less getting to know the candidate. The call lasted maybe 15 minutes. Needless to say, he didn't get the job. He later found out that the interviewer was actually back in our home city. So he flew 3 hours each way and stayed overnight for absolutely nothing. What the fucking fuck? Did they think you were interviewing for a different position? Miscommunication. That's sketchy as hell. Please tell me the company paid for your flights and other accommodations. Going to speculate that your interview had already decided you weren't going to get the job, maybe because they had someone else in mind, and decided that's how they would tell you. That's terrible either way. If I was acing every interview for my dream job and had to fly to my final interview, I would expect more from the interview even if I did get it. It was my best interview. Great rapport with the interviewer. Gave me the job on the spot. It for a transfer to K at Johnson Control. Came into work the next day to have the offer rescinded. The job was already given to the plant manager's niece, and it had only been posted because of company policy. The story is much longer and complicated afterward, but it was the first of several times I had been promoted different companies and then been told, never mind. Edit. Appreciate the replies and awards. Feel like I won Reddit today. Edit. Whoa. Johnson Controls is really not well liked. You were making me feel better about being ghosted by that company for a similar position a few years ago, after what I thought was a successful interview. Had an interview, went well. I was offering the job on the spot and accepted. Her manager went to get the needed paperwork, came back 10 minutes later, and said I must have forgot that we already filled this position. I'm sorry, but we don't have an opening. I could call you if something opens back up. I said no thank you. Oh my god, this unlocked one I'd forgotten about. I left work on a long lunch to interview because they flat out refused to interview me at a time I was not at work. Sounds somewhat reasonable, but I had occasional weekdays off to 4 per month. There was also a convoluted process for validating my parking, which I did. I showed up a bit early, waited about 40 minutes for someone I was told definitely was in, and apparently she was just eating lunch or something, because on my way back to work I got a call from her asking where I was. She tried to reschedule. Stressful enough the first time, I'm not going to jump through hoops if you don't value me as a prospect enough to keep your own damn appointment. This has happened to me, except there were 2 interviews. Except there were, says one in office, one with one of the owners, maybe over FaceTime, as he was based in Sweden. The whole process was over a month long just for them to tell me they thought they had a job, and they didn't. I'm a former newspaper reporter. The company I worked for hired a reporter, who then put in his 2 weeks' notice with his current job and was well on his way relocating from another city when higher management said they could not honor the salary they agreed on. They said he'd have to accept it or they would move forward with other candidates. Absolutely horrible company and people. I went in to apply for an administrative assistant position and the guy kept asking me questions about liking kids and are my passports up to date. I was so confused. Turns out what he really wanted was a nanny for his 2 young kids to travel with him and his wife back to India. I was so pissed he wasted my time. I noped right the fuck out of there. If that's what he wanted, that's what he should have put in the job description. I'm sure he would have gotten plenty of qualified individuals to apply. To be fair, I'm just happy that it wasn't human trafficking, because that was my first guess when I was reading that. What is actually up with people treating their work assistant like a personal butler? I've seen that way too often. Taking the kids to the dentist, finding craftsmen to fix things in the home. That's not the job of your business assistant.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.